Om Indram Mitram Varnamagni Matarato Divya Sasuparno Garutaman Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vedantya Agnim Yaman Matarish Vanamahu Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. To that one divine entity, the seers assign many an auspicious title, such as the eternal companion and friend of all beings, the fire of yoga, the waters of existence, the space of divine atmosphere, the destroyer of death, the winged carrier of consciousness, and the one who shines forth the light. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Satyena, Om Satyena Labhyastapassa Yesa Atma Samyagyanena Brahmacharyena Nityam Antaha Sharirehi Jyotirmayo Hi Shubhraha Yam Bhashanti Yatayaha Kshinadoshaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The Atman, the indivisible self in all beings and all things, is realized by knowledge, moderation, austerity, and veracity. All these constantly cultivated. When mental impurities dissolve due to this practice, then the seer beholds it naturally, existing everywhere and in everything, even here in this very body. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. So we continue on from yesterday's class here on Sunday in July in 2017 at the SRV Ashram in Portland. Ashram is an interesting place, not so widely seen anymore. There are monasteries and their households, and the West had its experience with ashrams back in the 60s and 70s, and I used to attend many of them and offer Jama music and teachings, Dharma teachings with music through a 20-25 year period and during those years. And saw those ashrams there, and sort of a fascination with them early on, the straw and fire, as Vivekananda said. We get very enthused about things, but then we burn out early and don't hold on to them and make them work over a period of time for our own benefit. And then we go on to the next thing, and the next thing is sort of a spiritual sensationalism that is rampant amongst people. So in this day and age, very difficult actually to hold ashrams in this American culture. You don't see them very often, but the idea with SRV is that we plant a few of them in cities here and there, like we have San Francisco and one in Hawaii, a spiritual center there on the Big Island, which you can all come visit our new shrine room, which is beautiful. And in Portland here, we used to have one back in New England. So we keep these going over years to allow the householders to have a place to go. Well, many of them won't go to monasteries or can't go, or it's not necessarily fitting for them. They don't feel comfortable sometimes. The same is true often with the monastic-run centers that have come over from India. Some people love that kind of spiritual conservative atmosphere, which is very good for the soul. Get your act together, as they say. But Lexics and a few people he selected back in 1980s and 1990s, the SRV National and SRV centers on the West Coast, associations, decided that there needed to be a place where Americans could come and feel a little bit more inside the atmosphere of their own culture and feel comfortable going there. And also give these households around in cities a recourse, and go somewhere, hopefully even give them an example to make their own house a center, so we have ashrams everywhere. Like in the old days in India, people just step out the door and walk a couple of doors down, and there's the guru, and step out the door, walk the other way, and there's a monastery, and then walk another road, and there's a bunch of wandering luminaries sitting there by the side of the road you could sit and talk to. And so everywhere you went, there's some spiritual recourse. And instead of just worldliness, materialism, newspapers, so forth and so on, with their own type of sensationalism and mundane human convention running rampant through it all, and no access to spirituality. Certainly couldn't find it in schools. They wouldn't even teach religion in schools. What to speak of spirituality? So holding on to these ashrams is a sort of austerity for us. We do it at a cost to us in terms of finances and time and energy. But they've been going for several decades now, and we're keeping them maintained, and our gurus look kindly upon them and think it's a good idea. And we've put out quite a few issues of our Nectar of Non-Dual Truth from them, and there's a lot of seva has been done, a lot of individual sadhana is being done inside of them with people who are advancing in their spiritual growth. And all the ups and downs in life are met with this station, or this stance that we take, kind of an asana, SRV ashram asana, if you want to call it that. And so they're not coming in hordes, flocking to such an idea, but it is a recourse. If anyone wants to come and immerse themselves in the Dharma or in spiritual life. Sri Ramakrishna used the metaphor or analogy of a towel. So you just dip that towel over and over again in the lake until it's totally saturated. So that towel is your body-mind mechanism, and you want to purify it so that, as I chanted, Satyena labhyas tapasa hesa atma, that basically you're practicing austerity and truth and moderation and those kinds of things, some austerities, that your mental and physical mechanisms will get purified in that atmosphere. And then all of a sudden God stands forth. So God was always there, has been veiled by the impurities or the inconsistencies of your own nature, the limitations of your own intellect, as we chanted this morning inside of the meditation early on. That meditation we do every morning too at around 5 a.m. for an hour. We sit together, and then people individually sit throughout the day when they can, and people also go to work from the ashram. So yesterday we were having a 4 times a year kind of weekend of classes. Next weekend we'll have a seminar here at the ashram on meditation. And as you remember, yesterday we were finishing up these hoary and auspicious slokas of the Adhyatma Upanishad. Not one of the Upanishads that Shankara commented on, because in the past 25 years or more we've been through most of those. We've looked into the Upanishads because we're calling ourselves Vedantists, and Veda Anta means the end of the Vedas, and if you look at the end of the Vedas you find the Upanishads. So it's called Vedanta. A lot of even, a few Hindus here amongst us, a lot of the Hindus even don't really study their own Upanishads. They know a little bit about Hinduism, and some people know a lot about that, but the Vedanta and the specific practices of yoga sort of rare to them, even though they do have ashrams and sampradayas and sects and so forth around. So the Western culture, I would say maybe 2 problems there. In India, it's that Swami Vivekananda found that they had left their scriptures behind and weren't studying them anymore. They were kind of old to them, and it hadn't been refreshed yet. So that's the problem there. He had all these sects that were each in their own little narrow way of thinking, and to break through that would be a very difficult thing, to bring this idea of universal harmony of all religions to the people there, which Ramakrishna did. At least he represented. Got to represent, So he represented that universality. However, when Swamiji looked at the West, America, he found open ground, fertile ground. And all he had to do then was break through a little bit of religious conservatism and some fundamentalism that was around, narrowness of religion, and maybe reach the people who were more independently minded with this idea of universality. So his hope was that as Americans and Europeans, English, he found good supporters in England, even at a time when England had been in India and had tried to dominate over it. So he brought that message forth in 1893, and here we sit after his coming. He came twice to the U.S. and spent a few years amongst us. And so my conclusion to that, my siddhanta, is that America finally has its own patron saint. Of course, we would call him a seer rather than a saint, or both. But a seer is somewhat different than a saint, because a saint is going on faith and devotion, basically, and generally speaking, and a seer is looking inside and having these visions that are associated with non-duality. So the West, it's good because the West has had this relationship with saints through Catholicism and through all of Europeans 2,000 years and so forth. They canonize, you see, and they baptize. But my teacher said it's not enough to baptize with water, you have to baptize with fire. So he wanted to bring this fire of Advaita Vedanta and douse our heads with that for a change. You see, sprinkling a little water, that's okay as long as the priest is authentic. But the yogi comes, the guru comes, the acharya comes to subject you to the fire of Vedanta and yoga. Practice the fire of yoga. And so I speak this way about ashrams, about personal sadhana, and about what we studied yesterday in order to segue us nicely into what we want to study today, which is, I promised you yesterday, was a new chart that we used at the retreat on the American River last weekend called Signs of Battle. I had been experiencing a flow of emails, as I do. I must have answered thousands and thousands of emails in my time by now with questions coming from the Dharma. I keep my address pretty much open for that and filter out the rest of the things, the junk mail, and try and stay to the point. So people write me questions a lot, and we answer that. You can find them now in books online and in our journal. Advaitic Instruction, it's called, AI, the nectar of Advaitic Instruction. So the Signs of Battle topic began to occur to me from the teachings. I get these messages, as it were. I like to think of them as coming straight from Mother, if I can concentrate on her, that different ways of presenting the truth with a little different angles each time, you see, with the subject headings and subheadings, subtitles and so forth. This time it came to me, Signs of Battle, because the youth amongst us in SRV, and some of them in Europe and so forth, are writing me and having problems with keeping a spiritual life going. So it's that straw and fire problem, but in their case it's not lack of interest, it's the impediments that society is always throwing at them, and of course dealing with upbringing, the ancestors and what they want you to do, where they want you to go and how they want you to get a job and all that. So they want you to get a job and a haircut earlier on. And now you say, okay, I'll shave my head. No, not that kind of haircut. We don't want you to become a monk. So dealing with all these things then, I got a rash of emails, as it were, as they call it, about youth having problems. Oh, it's hard to keep a spiritual life. I can't come to retreat because I have to work. I've got to make money. I've got a student loan. I have to take care of my kitty cat. I have children. Whatever it is, all sorts of things coming at me. That I began to think, well, how do we deal with this so that people can cut a little time out of earthly life and avoid worldly life? I think earthly life and worldly life are two different things. And then set that fire of yoga under this wood of spiritual life, of spiritual growth. And I thought, well, that you could just cut to the chase and say the forbidden R word. Anyone know what that is?
Renunciation.
Renunciation, yeah. That's a word nobody likes to hear. If you have a job and children and a kitty cat and so forth, you don't want to renounce them. Of course, Sri Ramakrishna's unique way is to say you renounce them as being ultimately real, because only Brahman is real. Only yourself is real. And these things that you take care of, well, you're basically a caretaker. The monks don't caretake, it's the outer things. So they renounce both outer and inner. The householders have to renounce inner only, and they have to keep the outer. But how to keep it and not lose your spiritual footing, is the problem. So renunciation, you couldn't use that word very effectively amongst the Western people. It's not going to take. They're not going to get attracted. And they'll have to spend some time with you before they find out. And it was the same case with Sri Ramakrishna. In India in 1800s, the young men, young women were coming to him, and their parents were the Hindu parents were telling him, don't go to that Paramahamsa, he'll cause you to give up the world. Cause you to renounce the world. And when Sri Ramakrishna heard about this, he said, no, I'm not asking you to give up the world, I'm asking you to take on Brahman, to realize Brahman. And you can do that inside the world from the standpoint of a householder if you learn the Dharma and learn what to do and what not to do. The Gita teaches that right out the front in the first several chapters. How to do action that rids you of your karma, that allows you to get knowledge, and that knowledge will then lead to renunciation. It's actually the name of the first 3 or 4 chapters after you get over depression. The name of the first chapter is Depression. It's Arjuna's depression, because he's on the battlefield here, and he's dropped his bow and arrows because the other battlefield has some of his relatives in it, the other army. This great battle of Kurukshetra now has a basis in history because they're unearthing it now. They've found it, the battlefield at Kurukshetra, and they're unearthing things from that battle. So it now has a basis, the Gita now has a basis in history, and therefore maybe Krishna also in an incarnation also has a basis in history as a reincarnation in not too distant times. So this was a great battle. And of course the Gita became a symbol for the battle that you have to be in the mind. So thus signs of battle. I thought, well, find an image and put some things on it that will help the youth understand, without using the word renunciation, that they have to recognize that they're in battle. People who have fallen asleep are not in battle, they're in pleasure. Or they're in suffering, and they suffer needlessly. It's only the devotees of God who truly suffer. And they truly suffer, why? Because they can't see God here, because God isn't here. God isn't a form. God isn't an object. God isn't an act. God isn't a thought. God isn't matter. That God is Brahman, and it's transcendent of all those things. Time, space, which we will look at today, causation, that's karma, and name and form. All those things are not in Brahman. They're in the mind. They're in Maya. The Maya is in Brahman, like poison is in a snake, Sri Ramakrishna said. So Brahman acts as a causeless cause for all of this, like vegetables dancing on a stove, They think they have their own life, but actually it's the water that's making them dance. Oh no, wait, sorry, it's not the water, it's the heat in the water. Oops, made a mistake again. It's not the heat in the water, it's the fire in the burner that's heating the water that's causing the vegetables to dance. No, that's not quite right, dear. Let's go deeper than that. It's the gas running through the pipes underneath the house that leads to the burner, that leads to the heating the water, that makes the vegetables dance. And finally you find out there's a container, or called a gas company, that is causing the whole thing to happen. You see, from a distance, this is completely divorced from worldly, earthly life that's going on in the household, is this gas company with its own storage tank, you see, an infinite storage tank. So in that way, Sri Ramakrishna explained the causeless cause of things, that all of this is happening in Brahman, because all of this is Brahman. But at the same time, Brahman cannot be the cause for anything, because it's beyond cause and effect. And these are Advaitic axioms which we will study one weekend from today If you join us for the follow-up classes to the Adhyatma Upanishad, you'll see the 5 essential facts of Indian philosophy and the pillar of axioms that Vivekananda told us about. Pillars of Advaita Vedanta. So back to Signs of Battle then, the whole orientation of it, coming from one of these slokas here, is that you must acknowledge that you're in battle. That's the first premise. If you acknowledge you're in battle, then you go to work, there's the battlefield. You don't walk out your door thinking everything is going to be rosy today, or I've got some problems at work I have to deal with, or work is real, and money making is real, and all that. Only Brahman is real, and you told yourself that in meditation before you left your house every day. But then you didn't hold on to it during the day, you see. Very difficult to hold on to that very subtle truth. I put it this way at the retreat last weekend, that a monk and the householder, you see, householder has to hold on to that high station of thought, called Advaita Vedanta, or Dharma, if you will, that leads to Advaita, amidst the workplace and all that. But you think maybe, well, the monk doesn't have to do that. But here's what I've known with my relationships with many monks, and talking with them, and learning from them, sharing with them, all the way up into my grand old age here, of my late 60s. So 50 years of looking into monasticism, and I've learned that if you're a monk and you renounce the world, and then you think, well, then I don't have to go to work. So the next day after you've taken your sannyas and so forth, or maybe the next month, eventually they introduce you the idea that, you have to go clean, you see, clean the monastery. You have to do some service, you see. Then the next month they say, well, we're going to put you in the office behind some paperwork. See? And you're thinking, I joined the monastery for this, to clean and do paperwork. And eventually you're going to have to be like doing worship. You see, maybe they'll sign you to a puja. You see. So monasticism isn't just necessarily, I give it all up and try and concentrate only on God and there's nothing else to do. That might have been an old style kind of monasticism, but now, to keep the monastery running, to keep your good home, and to keep up a spiritual practice that is leading you towards enlightenment, which is the end-all and be-all of monastic life, then you're going to have to be doing these actions. So what I'm saying here is, just like the householder leaves the house and has to retain his knowledge of Brahman while he's at work, so too the monk has to also go into these modes of action, karma, yoga, and so forth, and during those modes of action, stacks of paperwork, maybe serving the order by going to Bangladesh and helping people who are starving or flood-stricken or famine-stricken. They have to keep idea of Brahman in the midst of all that, you see. So then this renunciation that's external and internal for them is a great task before them. And then for the youth I'm talking about, and back to the creation of this chart just about a week ago, it's helping the youth and people becoming aware of signs of battle. And first then you acknowledge you're in a battle, and you're battling against Maya, you see. That is name, form, time, space, and causality, or karma, that is positing itself in front of you, presenting itself to you as the only reality. And 95% of the society around you believes it's the only reality. Amongst the monks, none of them believe it's the only reality. They've been taught better. See, so you have this disadvantage as a householder at work, that everyone around you is in a fog. And they're not waking up to the Dharma, they're not taking teachings, they're not meditating daily, they're not keeping up a spiritual life, they're not doing all their work selflessly, not being attached to the fruits. They all want the fruits for themselves. And this is the atmosphere which an aspiring young student goes into when they leave high school, college, which is in itself also godless. No belief in God, no teaching of God. Even if you take philosophy courses, they're arguing about whether God exists or not, but God is existence. So there's no truth of a non-dual type being presented to you there in college. I certainly never found it, and I was seeking the Lord, both with form and beyond. And I found that in Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. And I found the exemplars, the best exemplars of it in Swami Vivekananda and Sri Sharda Devi, the Holy Mother. So I found what I was seeking, but the path was not easy. It was strewn with obstacles and impediments, hurdles. Looking back, I wonder how I made it through some of those hurdles and ended up with a grasp upon the truth that I will then never let go of again. So try and help people in the West, in this materialistic country, who are young and who have a breath of life, hopefully before they enter into the workplace and marriage and having children. Because in India, it was pretty much taught in the old days that, when you were just very young, you were taught this Dharma. Before you even entered school, or school was accompanied by teachings of the Dharma. But here in the West, it's not the case. So when you have boredom at work, when you have a threat to your job, when you have too much work piled upon you, when you are so ensconced in the thickness of work and money making that it makes you say, well, my guru's coming to town in a couple of weeks, giving a retreat on spiritual life. I don't think I can go. I don't have the time. Then that's when you say, these are signs of battle. The boredom, the money making, the family raising, signs of battle. This is Maya trying to impinge itself upon me, so I need to be in conscious battle against it. Come to find that it's not a sentient evil, it's insentient. So you're the one that's allowing its existence. If you turn the tables on it, then all of a sudden the workplace, raising family, making money and all that becomes dharmic. See, so now you have a right to do it with right perspective. So signs of battle became a topic then just recently in my mind to present at that retreat. So I wanted to share some of that with those of you who weren't at the retreat today. And remember that we're looking at this in terms of these slokas 49 through 57 that we read out to you yesterday at class. If you weren't here, couldn't catch yesterday's class, go back and find it if you can, because there were some technical difficulties off and on. But we will YouTube that eventually. You will be able to find it, because all of these classes we're storing up eventually end up on YouTube. It's just a matter of time putting them into that venue and getting them available. There must be some 40 or 50 that you can look into, though, by now, maybe more. All with different titles in the Dharma. Subjects of Dharma, including non-duality, are available to look back on. In the meantime, staying present, we are looking at the Adhyatma Upanishad in terms of cause and effect. And I said yesterday that, interesting, just like the Gita, that all the moral and teachings on action and karma are reserved for the end of the Upanishad. It's sort of symbolic, I think, that most of these great teachings start out by declaring the truth first, right off the bat, declare the truth. And then you go into the world with this truth and deal with these things. So it's sort of different than, say, just throw yourself into the battlefield of the world without even knowing there is a battle going on, and start working without knowing the truth. The truth being that Brahman doesn't have action. Brahman doesn't need money. Brahman doesn't have a family. Brahman is non-dual. You can't pray to Brahman because it has no ears. It's a state of consciousness beyond name, form, time, space, and causation, which is what brought Arjuna in between these two armies. And it also brought Krishna out of hiding as the avatar of the age to instruct him. So there you see him poised in between these two armies. And we've often said about the Bhagavad Gita that it's a symbol for the battlefield of the mind. They're always teaching it in that way. Of course, it was a real battle, and there are real battles and wars going on today, so you can find plenty of evidence of that on the physical level. warmongering, we call it. And India's idea about that was ahimsa. It should always be done peacefully. And if there is any war coming, you should do everything you can to mediate it, so that it's just not even considered to be an option to go to war. It's a last-ditch effort. When everything else fails, if you cannot mediate with the human ego and they have to war and battle over resources and things like that, power struggles and so forth, then you throw up your hands and you take a position like Sri Krishna is there, driving Arjuna's chariot to teach him how to get out of such problems as dualities, war and peace, good and bad, virtue and vice, pleasure and pain. They all bind you because your mind thinks about them. But it should be thinking about the non-dual Brahman. If it thought about the non-dual Brahman, then none of this would come up. Try it sometime. I told a person yesterday who was suffering very badly and made her way here to her teacher to ask for some help. I said, I have a 3-word mantra for you. Write it out. Yeehaw! Write it out. It's like a bunking bronco. Because everything will change, and everything, the breeze that's blowing sour right now will blow sweet in a couple weeks. You just wait and see. Get rid of your fears, get rid of your doubts, keep your mind in a transcendent position, just watch everything go by like a flow of phenomena that it is. Because you're never going to you're never going to stop that flow. That's the eternal flow you're talking about, with hundreds and thousands of souls who are in ignorance and prefer to stay there. So we take a definite stand against that when we have signs of battle. We say, no, the soul is not sinful. The soul is divine by nature. That's the good news of Vedanta, if there is any. See, not sinful. And the world was not created in 7 days. That's a good metaphor, maybe, or symbol. But it was not created at all. It's a projection of the mind, and projections aren't real. Week after next, I'll show you teachings on the 5 essential facts of Advaita Vedanta, which speak to that matter. So all of a sudden your thinking, when you take a stance like that, your thinking gets an adjustment. See, your mind has a way to purify itself and look differently at the whole thing. It's a new perspective, a divine perspective, which is why I chanted at the beginning of the class. The seers, when they saw reality, they gave it a bunch of auspicious titles. The winged carrier of consciousness, the devourer of death. Ekam sat vipra bahuda vedanti. It is the most ancient statement on the universal nature of truth in any scripture, in any religion of the world. Ekam sat vipra bahuda vedanti, found in the Rig Veda. There is one path, one truth, and many paths leading to it. Is how they do that in the general. So I looked that up. It took me hours and hours, a couple days, to find that reference in the Rig Veda, which is a very huge scripture. It's not just an Upanishad. It's a Veda with Upanishads in it. So I found that one line, and then all of the words around it, and looked into those meanings, and found that they were not just saying there's one truth and many paths leading to it. They're saying that they call this one truth by many names, like the devourer of death and the one who shines forth the light, the eternal companion. All of these beautiful Sanskrit words had these wonderful appellations attached to them. So you could meditate upon that one truth in its many forms. So this is Krishna, who has manifested himself like one of those, or maybe a combination of many of those august titles that's being given by the rishis to non-dual truth. So Arjuna finds himself caught between these two armies, and one army isn't all bad and the other army all good. That's not the way the cookies crumble. He's got very dharmic people in this army, and there are very dharmic people in the other army too. But Krishna is sometimes blamed for being in a culture that promotes ahimsa, nonviolence, because he telling Arjuna to go to war. Well, you didn't read the Mahabharata that the Gita is found in. It's one of the largest scriptures in the world, I think it was the largest scripture for a long time. And in that is the story of Sri Krishna mediating between these two clans that were about to go to battle, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, trying to mediate for years, trying to put off that war. And even God couldn't do it. The human ego was so set on duality, on power, on domination, on money, and the other side was set on justice. You see, this is not right. We cannot allow this to happen. We can't let them steal the day. So when it came down to that, even God's helpless, you see. The human being has to go forth and live out its karmas. And so Krishna takes an intermediate position in between as the chariot driver. And this, as you know, probably many of you have studied the Gita, maybe you know that, but maybe you didn't know that Krishna tried to mediate this war for years and finally couldn't do so. So in that, to use that as a teaching today symbolically, then there are signs of battle. And Arjuna has, you see here, dropped his bow and arrow there by the side. And if he were to hold it up, half this army would run away in terror, because nobody wants to be near Arjuna when he picks up his bows and arrows. He's an expert. So he's lost his powers, basically. He's lost his way, and he's become weak, dejected, and the first chapter is called Vishada, Arjuna's dejection or his depression. So you cannot start off into any battle and expect to win. In fact, if you're dejected and depressed, you need to be in a very strong condition in order to be victorious over enemies. Enemies like the occult powers, warmongering, domination over others, selfishness, taking resources to yourself, not giving them out to others, all the things that are antagonistic to the divine nature, which is in the human being, in their very depths. See? And instead, it has gravitated to the surface of human nature, where all these powers are flowing like rivers. Vivekananda said he came here to the West and he saw that the Americans are very generous. Sometimes they're generous to a fault. Of course, this was in 1893. He said, but the only problem is that their god is the dollar, and these rivers of money are flowing constantly between them, and they get caught into that and forget their divine nature. So where is God in all of this? He's dead or doesn't exist. See? If you concentrate on the surface, then you forget the depths. We just heard Sri Ramakrishna say that when we were reading before the live stream audience joined us today. So then we have to enter into the fray and recognize that we're in a battle with an enemy that is insentient and whose nature is to cover our third eye, is to cover our perceptions. Even if these eyes are pure, you can see God, you see. John said, no man has seen God with these eyes. And Jesus told him that. So he meant these physical eyes. But you have subtle senses behind the physical eyes, out of which the physical eyes have come, and that takes you back into dream, also takes you into deep meditation. It also gives you inner vision. When those two eyes become single, you shall know the truth, right? So all of these references, sometimes cryptic sounding, find their way into various scriptures through these illumined souls that have come. Buddha wasn't a Buddhist, Christ wasn't a Christian. There were no such things when they were living. They were illumined souls walking the earth free. And later on, religion then gathered around them, sometimes to no good, up to no good too. If a pope or anyone puts on battle armor and goes to war against the infidel, then he's breaking the laws of God, nonviolence, first law, and helpfulness and non-covetousness of other people's possessions, and all the laws of yoga being broken right there. So when the human ego descends to such a place, then there are people amongst these battle grounds, on the battleground amongst these armies who are dharmic and don't like this. And Arjuna is sensitive, he's one of those. So bringing this current to today, and the way I put this chart together, the youth need to go out and be in battle. You have to say that the workplace is a kind of battle place, raising a family is a kind of battleground, and so forth. Everyone probably comes to know that after a time who has experienced it, but how many have lived through it unscathed? That is, seen it all to be unreal. That's the best state of freedom, you see, is when everything passes by and you're still there, your same old peaceful mind. Lord Vashishta said that if you get towards the end of your life and you don't have peace of mind, then something went wrong back there early on in your life. You have to exit out of that battle with peace of mind. Like the old warrior who just drops his sword one day, goes to the top of the hill, and he's done. So now all he wants to do is just witness a little bit what's going on until he passes from the body, free from his duties and everything being discharged and, as I said, unscathed by what went on. Like, just as nothing clings to space, so too, for the one who knows the self to be unattached and indifferent, future actions cling not in the least. So he's not worried about his future karma because nothing clung to him. See, he went through it all, but he was free of it. Like space defiled, just as space is undefiled by the smell of liquor, though it taints the air in the jar, so too is the self unaffected by the impurities of its adjuncts. So the self goes through all of these things and remains untainted. You have to know that, and if you don't know that, then you have to go to battle to recover it, like Arjuna has to recover his bow and arrows and get back into it and become a victor. Because Sri Krishna tells him maybe non-violence is the best way. It's not what's happening for you right now as a warrior. You have to go to battle because it's your duty and it's your destiny. And so better is your action well discharged than the actions of another, even if it's poorly discharged, than the actions of another that's well discharged. So if he all of a sudden just exits the battle and says, I think I'll become a monk, then he hasn't discharged his duty, and he's better doing that than becoming a monk or leaving the battle on some pretext. So carrying through like that, you could say, and another way of reasoning that Krishna uses is that if you don't go to battle, your enemies will laugh at you and your companions will be betrayed by you. You can't allow that to happen. There's no worse thing in life than infamy, you see. And they'll slander you and your name, and that's going to be painful to a great degree. So there's many ways in which Krishna tries to bring him out of Vishada. And over those first 6 or 7, 8 chapters, all of a sudden Arjuna's already changing. You can see his questions are coming now, he's getting the light back, and pretty soon he recognizes that Krishna is God in human form in the 12th chapter, I think. And from there he starts to get all the teachings on meditation and the powers of the Lord, the vibhutis, and the whole thing is just mounts up like that to a fine end. So at the end, Krishna says, gives him the teaching of the 4 yogas. Pass me that for a second. Gives him the teaching of the 4 yogas, and tells him Chaturdasya yoga. You see, there's one, the students, we showed this yesterday, the student got this chart from SRV, put it in a expensive frame with a fine matting behind it, and I put together the synthesis of the 4 yogas there that Swamiji called the new religion of this age. This is the present religion of the age, stripped of all denominations and foreign associations with this religion and that religion, just exactly what you need to do. Yoga is a universal term now, and it can't be left in the hands of the hatis. You see, we have to show where it is, and we have to show the seer who brought it to us, our patron saint of America now, and has gifted us this great teaching tool that is as ancient as the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where Krishna gave it out to Arjuna, called Chaturdasya Yoga. He gave it out in a little different form than in present form. Buddhi Yoga was there. And Holy Mother in this present day and age went ahead and gave that teaching out too. You have to have the yoga of the mind and the intellect is the yoga she wanted you to engage in, called Buddhi Yoga or Mano Yoga, or Daya Yoga, yoga of compassion. So these yogas are being given at the end of the Gita by Sri Krishna to Arjuna to further elucidate and to drive a stake into the heart, or you might say drive the last coffin into a nail into the coffin of his ignorance, so he can emerge from and do battle. So the youth need to do this today with every little sign that comes to them. Everything that upsets their balance, that takes their equilibrium away, that threatens their peace, must be given up. That's the renunciation part of it. If work is not fulfilling, if work is even detrimental to the environment, if you're working under people who are threatening your own sense of self-worth and so forth, you give those things up and look for a better occupation, because you're aware that you're in battlefield and there are enemies there. Otherwise, you're just moving blind amongst the battlefield. Any stray arrow could hit you. Any elephant could step on you. Any chariot could run you over. And so you get my point with that introduction. You can see here then that in the middle is Krishna giving instructions in making ready for battle. And his feet are transcendence of war. Like you can get out of this karmic situation if you become and leave the dualities of war and peace and so forth behind if you take his feet of bliss. On the left there, suffering to remove karma and transform action into knowledge. That's what you're doing when you're in battle. Your suffering is not pointless. If you have taken refuge in the Dharma, the Sufis call it taken hand, the Buddhists call it taking refuge, we call it mantra diksha, or a form of authentic baptism. Again, if the priest is illumined and baptizes with fire, not just water, any of those things are what is meant by facing off with your suffering. To you, then, suffering is amounting to something. So I called that there, suffering to remove karma and transform action into knowledge. That's the first 3 or 4 chapters of the Gita right there, excluding the Vishada yoga, that you have to get out of that kind of depression. When people hear about the unreality of the world, they get depressed, you see. Oh, I thought it was real. I thought it was my oyster. But thousands and thousands of souls have found the opposite, and others are in the process of finding that out. And as soon as they renounce it, that's when peace comes. As long as you consider the world to be real, you're going back and forth between happiness and sorrow, pleasure and pain. And life and death is happening to you, and that Buddha called the wheel of samsara, the kala chakra. So as soon as you find out it's unreal, you give it up, and then all of a sudden peace follows. So Krishna says that in the Gita. If you can't practice, if you can't meditate, if you can't even renounce the fruits of your actions, then give up all action, because peace will immediately follow renunciation. So, again, in the Western culture, we must emphasize that renunciation here doesn't mean giving up the world and going away into a cave. For most of the people of the world, renunciation means renouncing it internally. It came from your mind, so renounce it in your mind. And of course, in order for that to be effective, you're going to have to know that God is not a creator, that the world is not created, it's projected by the mind in a vibrational field. Vrittis. It's all vibration. And if you want to put it scientifically, if you quell that vibration, you see the Lord. If the vibration comes back again, you don't see the Lord anymore, because the Lord doesn't have vibration. And you can find proof of that when you wake up. You're here amongst, God is gone and the world is here. And when you go to sleep tonight in deep sleep, the world disappears and God appears to you. You get all your visions from deep sleep, occasionally from higher states of dream. But you're carrying that from deep sleep into dream. Because in deep sleep is held all the seeds. So the seed of the thought of Jesus is held in the deep sleep state. Call that unconscious mind if you want. But actually it's close to the superconscious mind, the way yoga thinks of it. So when Jesus sends you a vision, it'll be that he's holding a position as a seed in the deep sleep state, and he'll show you Christ on the road to Damascus, and you'll see that nobody else will see it, it's just for you. Or a burning bush, nobody else will see it, it's just for you. So you're bringing that out of a deep sleep state into the highest level of dream that occurs to you. And then you wake up, poof, that's gone, you see. So you're going back and forth between world and no world, basically. And we can show you a little teaching on that in a minute about 3 mouths and 19 arms and limbs of the Lord. I'll show you that soon. Let's go through this chart because this is a good enough preamble. Now on the other side here you see suffering for the sake of pleasure and pain that creates more karma. This is pointless. This is futile. So that's why Holy Mother says here, ordinary people are quite happy. They eat, drink, make merry, and forget God. Only the devotees know no end of real suffering, and that is because they do not see him. So if you've seen God and God gets taken away from you, the world doesn't interest you anymore. You've had a glimpse of what's beyond the world, and the world pales in comparison. Nature, sunsets, food, tastes, sexual activity, procreation, the joy of raising children pales to insignificance once you've had the vision of Brahman. Every realized seer says so. That's why they're not involved in those things. They're fully renounced like Jesus was, wandering free like Swami Vivekananda, sitting in meditation under trees and on mountaintops like Muhammad and Buddha, and living in a bliss, in a peace that passes all understanding, in a bliss that cannot be comprehended by ordinary people. The ordinary people, in the meantime, are eating, drinking, and making merry, and their suffering is futile. They suffer too, but they're reaching for the next oasis of pleasure to get rid of suffering. Not going to work, because pleasure and pain both create karma. Pain is an iron chain, pleasure is a gold chain. That's how Vivekananda put it. They both bind you. Of shining gold or darker, baser ore, he used to say in his poems. No slave is slave, caressed or whipped, not free. See? So if you're slave to nature and you're slave to worldly people and worldly circumstances and so forth, then you're a slave. You know, whether it's a slave to pleasure or a slave to pain, and both are coming in turns all the time. It's only when you back off from the world and witness it from a distance that you see this cycle, and then once you see it, you get nauseated. See, your fear of not making it in the world turns into fear about being bound by the world when you see the cycles. It's like being on a merry-go-round after you ate a lot of popcorn and hot dogs. See? And nobody wants to be near you. You know why, you see, spinning around. So the world is like cotton candy. You see, the diet there is like cotton candy. It doesn't fulfill you, and in fact it tends to turn everything to poison in your system. And you have to renounce that poison, like Shiva does. See, drinks the poison, holds it in his throat, and saves everyone from it. He transforms poison into nectar. So he's constantly doing battle then, and that middle part has now been explained to you, and these quotes go along with it. She says, God is not realized in the world, he is realized in spirit. Has God ever visited anyone who is devoid of ecstatic fervor? So God doesn't come and show himself to worldly people because they don't want to see him. The devotees want to see him. So you have to then cry one tear. You see, Sri Ramakrishna said, you've cried jugs of tears for wife, children, money, and power and so forth, but you've never cried one tear to see God. So he says, just try and think about God and cry one sincere tear for God, and then God may come and begin to show itself to you in whatever form or formlessness that it might appear to you. It's got those two modes, form and formlessness. The prophets are all in Maya. You see, they're all forms. They pass, they come, they go. You look for them to return, they return, you don't recognize them. So they're constantly in Maya too, but they're in Mahamaya, Great Maya, Mother's Maya. That's a higher cycle than the wheel of birth and death, constantly, because they're being born consciously and they're dying consciously. Other souls are not doing that. They haven't learned that art yet, or we say they haven't been awakened yet. They're still spiritually asleep. And Arjuna is one of those. He's still spiritually asleep. He's drowsy. Pain has come to him. His brother, Yudhishthira, the oldest of the Pandavas, is the most honest and perfect man on earth at the time. But look what problems he has from the Kaurava clan. Can Yudhishthira enjoy his knowledge and his realization and his dharma and all that? Or is there still problems coming from the world, threatening it all the time? And does he have to be on battle all the time? Because his sylvan peace, his pastoral peace is being threatened every time by the problems of the world. So he has to constantly be on vigil or in signs of battle around him. He has to recognize them. So all those watching who have jobs and who have families and so forth, renunciation is a key word, but it has to be understood inside the context that you're living, the mode that you're living in. It has to be applied there. You're not going to go mixing several paths or several ways to try and find a solution. You have to find what matches your own destiny, your own dharma, your own karma, your own samskaras, and expand yourself with the methods that Vedanta, Yoga, Samkhya, Tantra, Shaivism, Vaishnavism, Shaktism, and a whole bunch of other isms are proposing to you that are time-tested through centuries and millennia in India. The 4 yogas, for instance, time-tested. Otherwise, Vivekananda wouldn't have brought them back and said, here's the new religion for you. Guess what? All the religions of the world, including my own, Hinduism, have failed you. So here's a new religion for you. Try doing the 4 yogas on your own auspice. Free yourself. Because it was the same in the time of Jesus, 550 years before Jesus. It was the same in the time of Buddha. 2,000 years before Buddha or more, it was the same in the time of Krishna. There was the world to deal with. So you stand up and you fight it as a warrior, with full strength, as adept as you can with all your methods. Every arrow in the scabbard has a name of Maya on it that you're going to slay. See? My teacher said, you must put sleep to sleep, you must make fear afraid of itself, and put death in its own grave. That was how he put it when he was talking about battle for the householders that he was speaking to. Every talk he would start off, get up on the podium, come out of a high state, come down to where we were, look at us and go, oh, I'm talking to the Western people. See, as if he was trying to remember that he wasn't in India anymore. See? So the Western people, first thing you think of, Bogamark. Path of enjoyment. You'll never get what you're seeking. All of you here listening to me, you'll never get enlightenment through the Bogamark. She just said that. Has anyone ever seen God who is devoid of ecstatic fervor? You realize God in the spirit, not in the world. Well, Swami Sheshananda had his own way of saying that. He said you can never get to the infinite through the finite. And somehow we think we can put off our spirituality, we can put off our emancipation, we can put off this state of bliss and peace and so forth while we enjoy the world. But all the time the world of Maya is encroaching upon us and we're creating more karmas in it. And that's why yesterday we put those 2 charts side by side. The 4 types of karma with its 4 shades and the dynamics of karma. And I had a hard time taking them down this morning. They look so fine together. It's funny because I was talking to a person and that person had their back to these charts yesterday. that were still up. She was suffering so much. And everything she was saying was right out of these charts. The whole solution to what she was suffering was here. And she hadn't come to class that morning. See? So you need to take holy company. That's why he's giving instructions for battle. He's not telling Arjuna, go to the forest and say and repeat, I am, over and over again till you get realization. He's got too many karmas for that. He's found himself in the midst of this. He's a warrior, not a sage. And a warrior has to defend the righteous, which, by the way, begins to become a little bit suspect when you might be the hero of one war, but the villain in the next, because you've fallen into the very things you were fighting against. Unbeknownst to you, you've become adharmic. Your culture has become adharmic. Your politics have become skewed. And your business has become dishonest. So how can you expect to be champions of the world if you've lost the Dharma and your peace of mind went along with it? So I gave a series of classes on my Guru's teachings in Hawaii a couple months ago. You can go back and look at those eventually. And everything he said for 40 years to us, that he was taking the Western culture to task. So if he saw you, I'm speaking to the American people, you're following the Bogamarg, you need to follow the Gyanamarg, path of wisdom, path of Dharma, path of awakening, path of spiritual realization. Then you'll be true masters of the world, because you will have transcended the unreal world and you'll be living in the real Brahman, which is, by the way, the only reality. Then when you come back to the world, you'll see Brahman here. Whereas before you had that realization, you were seeing a location in space and time. But space and time and locations came out of your mind. Right now you're living in your mind. That's how Lex Sixon, our founder, used to put it. You're living in your mind. These objects are all thoughts, made solid by your own mind. Coming out from the subtle senses to the gross senses is all a solidification of your thought. God didn't create the world, your mind did. So you can take it back. And then when you take it back, you can work on it, and next time you project it, turn it into pure gold. Somebody said to Sri Ramakrishna once said, oh, I shouldn't go into the temple because I'm just worshipping a statue of cork and wood and paint and, And Sri Ramakrishna, she said, no, it's not Mrinmoy, that's Chinmoy. Mrinmoy would be, an image worship, an image that doesn't have anything in it. But when you look at the image, your mind can transform that into Chinmoy, pure consciousness. It's full of consciousness. It's not full of delusion or illusion. So the mind that takes it back, works on it, and projects it again is graduating stages of consciousness. And it feels it. Pretty soon it feels illumined, it feels inspired all the time. And when it opens its eyes and sees the suffering, even the pleasure-ridden, like my teacher was looking at the Western culture, and he'd say, well, how can I explain this to them, see? So I'm hearing the same thing in my time on the podium, as it were. I prefer an asana, see, Hindu style. But what I want to do is throw as many angles at you as possible from all the different sampradayas and sects and darshanas of India that can give us a grip on the reality and make us not doubt the courage of our convictions, our original convictions. When we saw the truth, we claimed it for our own, and we should never let go of it for any reason from then on. And that's how to maintain a spiritual life in the world. You do battle, in this case. So there are some signs of it. We just had two great sayings from Holy Mother about that. You know Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi, the incarnation of Divine Mother in this age, according to Sri Ramakrishna, who blends Kali, Lakshmi, and Saraswati all in one goddess. We sing about her, and we sang it last night. Devim prasanam pranatarti hantrim yogendra pujam Jugadharma Patrim Tam Sharadam Bhakti Vijnana Datrim Daya Swarupam Pranamami Nicham. Devim Prasanam, O propitious goddess, killer of misery in souls resigned. If you resign yourself to her, she'll destroy your misery. Savior of religion in every age, by saints and sages worshipped, O mother kind. That is, Vivekananda worshipped her, Ramakrishna worshipped her, Swami Brahmananda worshipped her, the man who wrote this song, Swami Advaita, worshipped her and attended her as a boy, served her. So, by saints and sages worshipped, O mother kind, give us love and wisdom, bhakti vijnana datrim. Give us love and wisdom, thou, O grace incarnate, to thee we bow. So that Holy Mother is talking to us about the nature of suffering, and she tells us in different statements there is suffering that's pointless, and there's suffering that amounts to something. Enough said. Down here, she also says, though, the suffering of worldly beings pains me. They will not seek liberation. For sincere seekers, however, misery is the gift of God. It is a symbol of his compassion. So the whole thing has to do with the quality of your consciousness. If the quality of your consciousness is unawakened, still has the dross in its gold, covering power, projecting power, veiling power, distorting power is still in it, called avarana and vikshepa shakti, then your suffering is amounting to nothing. But as the minute you bring that revealing power or revelatory power called prakasha shakti out, the whole scene changes. It's just a matter of removing the veil or shifting your mind to a different level of consciousness. And this is what I told this suffering being yesterday I met. See, well, you just need to ride it out. See? New mantra, ride it out. Yeehaw. Get on the back of that bunking bronco and ride it out until things pass. And the point is that you'll see them pass, then you'll be happy again. Then the mistake you'll make was to think everything is going to remain happy, and it doesn't. It recurs again, and this is called the changing of the three gunas, which is constantly going on, even in the illumined mind. The dark night of the soul is a kind of tamas, or darkness, that comes upon them. But it comes upon them for the sake of the collective mind, not for their individual mind. Their individual mind's already perfect. That is, it's no mind, as they call it. No mind means there's nothing in the ordinary mind left in it. It's just back to its original state. It doesn't mean emptiness. You've burned all the seeds that would cause anything to come back and kick back on you. And now your mind is free. It's the open space beyond religion. The founder of our organization called it that. The open space beyond all religion. So, a rather poignant slap to the face. You see, misery is a gift of God. It's a sign of his compassion upon you. He wants to wake you up. And if you don't wake up, then you find yourself in horrible battles like this. If you call upon God intensely, he may come and help you. That's called Ishvara, or God with form. These are all 4 quotes by Holy Mother out of her own mouth, things she said while she was alive in the 1900s. Into the 1920s, she outlived Sri Ramakrishna by many years, decades. And now she became the mother of 6 million children and of thousands of monks. After he was gone, he said, "I am going to leave you behind as the example of perfect womanhood to the world," he told her. Divine Mother of the Universe has come. So then everyone was writing songs about her like this. That's just one verse out of one song. I could sing you dozens. Yet the world still doesn't know her. She's the greatest hidden secret. And this is the way the Mother moves, in quietude, in silence, in modesty. Lajya patta vritti nityam shardagyana daike. The Swami went on to write another verse. O Mother in modest veil. Lajya patta vritti. See? So, she says here again, when a favorable time dawns, man gets the desire to contemplate God. When unfavorable times come, he acquires the facilities for doing evil. Thus, one should constantly make oneself fit for the grace of God. Instructions on preparing for battle. You don't deviate from your spiritual path just because an unfavorable time comes. In fact, if you keep up your spiritual path during unfavorable circumstances, that's how you build muscles. And it's true in the workplace, and it's true in meditation. Meditation is not good today. I think I'll stop. But you persist instead, and by the end of your meditation, you have become gained victory over the darkness that was in your mind 20 minutes ago. Happens all the time. You're letting the power take you over. And so pretty soon, if you're a meditation master, you sit in that light. The minute you sit down, you're in it. The minute you stand up, you're still in it. And a stage beyond that, as she used to say, was, does God exist only when eyes are closed and cease to exist when you open them? So there's a state beyond opening and closing your eyes in meditation, meaning going into life and seeing God everywhere. That's a very high stage of realization. It's a kind of samadhi. When you have it, you don't come back and write books about it or put out brochures. So you continue on with business or raising families. You've seen the world to be unreal. You're done with it. And now your only purpose is to help others get done with it. And so she said in her teachings, you've all reached the goal when you found Sri Krishna. Your lifetimes are over. Your lifetimes in ignorance are over. Now, won't you please help a few along your way? So turn and help a few beings as you go towards this goal which you've already attained. So, what to speak of, no doubt within her, she was all positive about the great master. Mother Kali had smiled upon this soul, and Mother Kali, there's no one comparable to her. Even death runs away frightened from her, one song says. So these 4 quotes are beautiful, and we can wrap up this part of the chart by using Swami Vivekananda's saying down here at the bottom. There are 2 tendencies in human nature. One, to harmonize the ideal with the life, and the other, to elevate the life with the ideal, or to the ideal. It is a great thing to understand this, for the former tendency is the temptation of our lives. We try and bring God down to our comfort zones, and God is not coming anywhere near them. That's called pleasure, that's called the Bhoga Marga, and that's a trap. So you won't find God, even when he's in form, amongst the pleasure palaces. Ram left the pleasure palace, Buddha left the pleasure palace they were born in. Christ was born free of it. So they're not coming anywhere near the Bhoga Marga, or the world, or its pleasures. Long ago did away with that, if they ever had it in the first place. So these are sparks off of the fire of God that shine, even when they're in a body, and give off a great light. Shamkrishna used to say, the ordinary man is like a waterlogged log. See, like a waterlogged log. He gets on it, and he can maybe float himself across the river, but he can't have anyone else. Get away from my log. See, so only hold one. The evil person, he said, is like a man who enters into the river and grabs a hold of a crocodile, thinking it's a log. The more advanced person is a soul who is more like a boat. you see, can take 3 or 4 across the river, and so forth and so on, until a ferry boat that can carry hundreds. And beyond that, a steamship, you see, that's leaving a wake. Even the wake it leaves behind can carry people, like surfers, you see. Surfers surfing the waves in a harbor, that is left behind by a huge steamship leaving. So great avatars are like that. They can not only carry hundreds and thousands of souls, the wake they leave carries people to freedom. This is how Sri Ramakrishna said it. So Vivekananda says it's a really good thing to realize this, that there are 2 tendencies of people. One, try and bring God into the world. And religion is also guilty of that. But the other is to raise yourself to God. So God won't come into the world. No man has seen God with these eyes, and so forth and so on. Birds have nests, foxes have holes. You have no place to lay your head here. All those teachings Christ gave. The enemies of your life will be the members of your own family. I mean, he had a whole host of teachings where he was looking at the world and saying, do not try and bring religion down here with a capital R. Raise yourself up. And then other people will see you raise yourself up and they'll follow. Otherwise, you're just, as they say, becoming a part of the problem. Trying to look for a solution, but you're actually an integral part of the problem. So we sing about that in terms of Vivekananda's teachings. Spulingan svotayan sudipta niryatam tataiva tvam yate vikirya manusham parigyana prabham acharya bharate Viveka nandate prabhate pranjali Narendra shashave Narendra yovane Narendra kridane Narendra shikshane Narendra palane Narendra harpane Viveka nandate prabhate pranjali Aho akarshanam tavayastayatulam, and so forth and so on, in a whole set of verses rolling out from the mind of this present-day Swami, the Ramakrishna order, about his great ideal, Swami Vivekananda, having to say things like, victory to Vivekananda, the itinerant monk who illumines the 4 quarters of the universe and the 10 directions and the 14 spheres of existence with radiant luster, emanating the light of realization as a blazing fire emits sparks. The sacred land of India and the entire world is graced by your footsteps and rushes to pay homage to thee, the perfect man. In this auspicious dawn of illumination, we offer you our sincere salutations. Narendra Yarpane, Narendra Shikshane. Narendra was his pre-monastic name. It means God and mankind. Narayan. That's how you put that emphasis on the second syllable. Narayan. Narayan. It's the best way to say that. Or Narayani, the Divine Mother in women, you see, and the goddess. So these beautiful verses echoing sentiments of Vivekananda's teachings like that. God is not in the world. The world is in God. So first you get slapped in the face. Huh? I thought God was here. I've been trying to bring him down here. But he, it, she, that will not come, you see. In fact, you try and assign any kind of title to it, and you're buggered, as they say in England. It doesn't work. It won't come when it's called by name because it has no names. Yet they assign auspicious names to it, like I chanted at the beginning of class. See, what can I call that? How about the devourer of death? See, that doesn't really do it much of an injustice. Or maybe I could call it the winged carrier of consciousness. That's very inspiring, you see. like a Garuda bird, you see. Om Indram Mitram Varunamagni Matarato Divyaha Saparno Garutman. So, the Garuda bird is this winged carrier of consciousness, carries Vishnu into samadhi. It's like prana or psychic prana, Garuda. So there's one way we can call him. We think of these fine names for Brahman, and at the same time we apologize for calling him any name whatsoever. Because you have to raise yourself to that nameless, formless place. You can't pull that down here. The Indians, the Hindus, the Vedic religions, the Tantrasists along the Indus River, however you want to call them or assign them in time immemorial, have always bent that rule. God is nameless, formless, timeless, spaceless, so forth and so on, but in order for a concession for the people, we have to bring that down and explain it to them. Sri Ramakrishna would hardly trespass that rule. Tell me what that's like, that samadhi you had, this formless. And he would try and explain it and then go into it, because he was that open to it. Suggestion, see. So you couldn't get anything out of him for hours. You have to wait for him to come out of his nirvikalpa samadhi and ask him again, and then he'd go into it again. Once he said, it's like a salt doll walking in an ocean. It wanted to measure the ocean. It wanted to be the first to measure the ocean of Brahman. But when it got in, it dissolved there. And there was no one left to come back. So that's what it's like to go into that state. Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospels describes the Jnanis and the Bhaktis. The Jnanis are having this non-dual meditation, you see, and the Bhaktas are loving God with form. Every once in a while, one of the Bhaktas will peek into the chamber where non-dual samadhi is going on, and they'll cry out in fear and run away. They don't want anything to do with the formless Brahman, you see. So these two different temperaments are there. God, those who prefer God with form, and those who prefer the formless reality. Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't, as they say. So when you feel like a nut, you're God with form, you see. And Sri Ramakrishna, when he was in form, was rather a nut, kind of a madcap. Otherwise, it's all creamy nougat without any solid things in it, you see. The sweetness, all sweetness of non-dual reality, timeless, spaceless, causeless, deathless, birthless, and so forth. Again, trying to explain the inexplicable. Well, after our break, we will look back on these two columns. Now, the last quote here in our remaining minutes before the break are from Krishna, who's there teaching. So he would tell Arjuna something like this: what is sweet in the beginning is to be avoided, for it generally turns sour in the end. But that which is sour at the outset is to be forborne and purified, for it gradually transforms into the sweetness of true attainment. And that's where I was thinking, my mental notes show the transforming poison into nectar chart in accord with that sloka from the Gita. So because that has to do with signs of battle. You recognize that you're in a battle, but then you have to have tools that you haven't dropped in the dust lifetimes ago that are all inherent in you. Rain cloud of virtues, they call that. They showed that at the retreat in accordance with this. That you need to go back and uncover and brush off and wield, see, like he needs to do. And then you can transform that poison into nectar. A great tantric art, if you want to call it that, or a yogic ability. So here, let's take our break and we'll come back in 10 or 15 minutes. welcome back, or to get in the proper vernacular, welcome back. My travel agent always, I say thank you for that. He says welcome. So we want to bring forth that teaching of battlefield of Kurukshetra in the right perspective, in the right context, as they say. And we have been doing so and accomplished this chart. Everything except the actual indications of success in battle and the indications of failing or pending failure, as it says here. So some of those really quickly are indications of forthcoming success in your battles with mundane human convention, with Maya, with raising families, with going to jobs, is that you begin to feel a general dissatisfaction with the world. I've always seen that in this example in some of our youth whom they give pills to, or if they show an interest in sannyas, although nobody knows what that word means, including them, that there's nowhere to send them in the Western culture. If your child doesn't show any signs of wanting to go into an occupation and isn't interested in the world, and at the same time that is not lazy, it's not laziness you're seeing, it's just an inadvertence to enter into these arenas, then we don't have a sannyasin institution to send them to. Even in India nowadays, some of the parents don't want to keep their children out of such institutions, you see. And so, but at least having an option, as they say, for that, then the youth could go towards it when they become dissatisfied with the world, general dissatisfaction with the world and its doings, as if they'd done it over and over again so many times, you see, and it's not interesting them anymore. March to the drum, a different drummer, as they say, and so forth. They're hearing a call. That's an indication of success. So actually it's not reason to be depressed. Either you or your parents be depressed about it. It should be seen as a sign of battle, and probably a sign that you've finished your duty in the world. That's why, suffering to remove karma and transform action into knowledge is now going forth, and you've managed to do that. Now you take the knowledge you have and you use it for wisdom, higher wisdom. You don't get stuck in the intellectual frame of reference. That's what my teacher always called it. Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj says you'll never understand words like Jivan Mukta and Samadhi as long as you remain on the intellectual frame of reference. So he had been, had doctors and lawyers and professional people in his coming to hear his talks, because people had heard about him. And they didn't stay, but so he began to see that they weren't understanding these spiritual axioms, these principles that India had proven so long in its spiritual life and existence. So intellectual reference was a blockage, and prior to that it was attachment to pleasures. Prior to that it was thinking yourself to be the body and attachment to matter. So no matter how much the soul marches, there's going to be a place where it's going to need to transcend all these things to move into higher wisdom, and that's a sign of it, that you're getting a dissatisfaction with the world. Otherwise, on the other side, imagining that the world can grant all that you desire. The world is my oyster, as they used to say, but that's a great delusion in your mind. The world is a projection of your own mind. I used to explain that in terms of prayer. People say, well, I want to pray now, but I said, why do you want to pray now? Your prayer's already been answered. See, you've already been given everything. Now, what are you going to do with it? Pray for more? When you don't even know how to use what you've got correctly? So it was always so clear to me that, that if you want to put Maya and nature and human culture into a certain perspective, you could put it into perspective of everything has been given me already. Now, what am I going to do to utilize it? Am I going to go to other countries, covet their resources and cause war? Or am I going to work on myself? Am I going to shoot rockets into space and pollute the environment with nothing when nothing's up there but more of the same? Or am I going to use that resources and all the monies, millions of dollars for education, or take away from military spending and give it to education or for higher learning? See? What are you going to do with what you've been given? One battlefield, people of that battlefield will say one thing, and the other battlefield will say another. But there's also an admixture of beings in both battlefields, dharmic and adharmic, and a mixture thereof. So it's not as simple, like this battle is a good sign of it not being just cut and dried, virtue and vice, the good and the bad, those whose side God is on and those whose side God is betrayed. Krishna didn't take a side. He became a chariot driver so he wouldn't have to engage. And that's one of the signs of success. In his case, he was just there for the good of all worlds, loka sangraha. On this other side, then, you see performing disinterested works for a higher end. So you get that dissatisfaction with the world, but you still have to be in it. So you find a way to do it all dharmically. The Eightfold Path of the Buddha, Ashtanga Marga, is probably the best of all systems in the world that shows that. It's much better than the Ten Commandments say, which are more moral. But the Eightfold Path is based in practice, not just observance of morals, actual practice. Right perspective, right livelihood, and so forth are all there, indicated by teachings that back them up. So that's one of the beautiful systems out of India, Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path. And the Four Noble Truths start off with a slap in the face. There is suffering. You just accept it. So if you accept it, you're in battle already with the causes of suffering. And you're going to gain victory over suffering. To an enlightened soul, Vishishta says, the lashes of 100 lashes by the whip is like soft fingers massaging your back. He takes it to a real extreme, to a person who's not in the body, and nerves he's outside in a different set of nerves, not in the physical nerves, he's in the spiritual nadis. Then the body is immaterial, inconsequential what happens to it. And they really actually feel this. Whereas on the other side of the battlefield, Sri Ramakrishna said, people are so attached to the body that they cannot give it up. The body is so dear to them. But he was contrasting that to prema. Prema is the love that Radha had for Krishna. Radha is behind everything. So Radha had for Krishna, and she said it was a love that was so intense in her that she even forgot her body. She was usually very prim and proper, but she would go into ecstasy and forget her body. So it's a kind of love that causes people to forget the body, which is usually so dear to them. That's like a direct quote out of the Gospel, of Ramakrishna. So in that way, we see that you might have to stay in the world even if you're having these experiences and find a way to transform poison into nectar. We're getting to that. On the other side, attachment to work, considering it everything in life, is the sign of failure. And that's showing up all over the world, in all countries in this time, that work is what you do. I said yesterday that there was pounding and hammering and sawing and grinding and everything going on all around it, in the houses around us here, while we sit in quiet and meditation and dharma. And so I was just at the break upstairs, sawing and hammering next door, on Sunday. So work is everything. You can't take any time off from it. And that's a sign of failure on many levels. Really, it's because you just can't take time off from work because you don't know what to do with yourself. Sri Ramakrishna said that about the Brahman priests in India. They go on closing and opening the door, saying, it's time for the Lord to sleep, you can't enter the temple. Oh, the Lord is awake now, you can go in the temple, and they open the door. And then they sit in front of all these pujas, doing it constantly all day, offering this and that, 24 hours of the day doing pujas, and now I have to put this potato here. If I put it on the right side, my ancestors for 4 generations will go to hell, so I have to put it on the left. They just go on with all this stuff, you see, that they have to observe. And he says, I know why those poor fools do that, Vivekananda said. It's because they don't know what to do with themselves when they're not doing ritual. So that's why ritual is considered to be a deeper, darker hell, you see. Now, we do ritual here, but it's taken a back seat to Jnana Yoga. It's taken a back seat to Dharma. It's even taken a back seat to serving each other as God and each other. So that puja that is done dharmically leads to higher awareness. So you just have to, again, see everything in that light of transformation. It's depending on the quality of your consciousness, the consciousness of your sangha, the consciousness of your leaders. And it would be the same in spiritual life generally as it would be in the world. Consciousness of your leaders needs to be checked by the people and by the seers. Again, one of the problems in America, no sannyas institution, no monastic institution, we were saying. Another problem is there's nobody to look up to. In India, the politicians, the kings, the rajas and rajanis and everything, they all looked up to the sannyasins. There was a free class of souls that was beyond them. So they invited them to the palace. What should I do? Here's my dilemma. Here's the problem with guiding the people. And the sannyasins were left in their ivory tower on purpose. So I said, oh, don't get on your ivory tower. No, do. I say, get on an ivory tower as quick as you can and get free so that you can help others without being involved in the world. Because if you're involved in the world, you cannot help them. Action and inaction don't go together. They don't mix like oil and water. You want me to show you? Hand it to me. We haven't used it for a while. It's just been sitting there collecting dust. Oil and water don't mix. Action and inaction are like that. You see, they seem to mix, and that's a problem. But you watch for about 45 seconds, and the separation process will happen. So they have a relationship, that much, you're safe in saying. But they don't mix, ultimately. God and matter, God and mammon, if you want to say, do not mix. And it's the same with action and inaction. So you must keep them sacrosanct from each other until you get realized. That's why Vasishtha and Vivekananda both said much the same thing. Until you get realization of Brahman, follow the way of the seers, follow the way of the Dharma. Do not think that you're beyond it yet. Follow that way until you get enlightened, until others have looked upon you, your teachers have looked upon you and said, okay, you're safe now. Last visit here with that sloka 48, the last chart I showed here to you was B7. You see the 10 lands, the Dasa Bhumikas of Buddhism. So you have 10 lands of freedom after you get free. There's 10 more levels of freedom. And the third or fourth, the other Buddhas are saying, okay, you're good to go now. You see, we'll call you a Buddha. But you have to, it's not when you first get freedom that they call you Buddha. You have to prove yourself on 3 other levels of existence and gain all your powers back and so forth, until they will all of a sudden say, okay, we'll call you a Buddha. You see, you're enlightened. You don't have to fear falling anymore. So it's that specific. And therefore, we show these signs of battles, and the signs of battle, success in battle, and the signs of failure both coming up. Another sign of success would be considering the increase of knowledge and spiritual growth to be the point of life in the world. Like Vasishtha said, if you lose your peace of mind toward the end of your life, something went wrong. So it's the same with this inherent knowledge. You should have uncovered it, brought it forward, and live in it until you pass from the body. That's your protection. That's your safeguard. That's God's grace upon you. Earlier, God's grace was suffering. But now you've transformed the poison of suffering into the nectar of realization. You see, so now you're traveling on a different fuel. You see, a rarefied fuel. Across the board there, you would say, though, that attachment to work, thinking, wealth, and enjoyment of the sense objects to be the purpose of human existence is a sign of failure, and you've fallen from the goal. Workaholic, they call that nowadays. On the other side, penultimately, treating the contrasting duality of praise and blame equally. So that's a sign of success. No matter what happens to you in your work, success or failure, loss or gain, and those two are very important to people right now. Success, failure, loss, and gain. That's basically has to do with fame and money, you see. That is, that's how they're measuring things. I heard a young person just say that the other day. Well, I go out there and she's 20, and all my contemporaries in my age group are out there, and they ask me about my path, and I tell them. And he said, all of them want to commit suicide. She said, my young friends are not satisfied here, and they think maybe suicide would be the way out. That's how dissatisfied the youth are. And so at the same time, this young person also told me that coming on retreat is very difficult. She has to leave work and sacrifice the money that keeps her alive for each month. You see, it's not just the adults have that problem too, time and money, but not like a young person, because a young person has been raised, they've got student loans to pay off, they've got all sorts of things going on that is keeping them from coming to retreat. Yet it's when she comes to retreat, she said, that she feels like she's living. So she's got all the signs of success there, but no support from anyone around her, including her peers. And the only thing she can do is go see her guru or the sangha when they come to her area. She'll even fly places. She considers it so important. So we have a group of young people like that who are amongst us in SRV Sangha, and I'm sure there's probably a faction of young people in other walks and religions and sampradayas, we call them, on paths that are also attracted, but they're having these kinds of problems, and we have to not only just have compassion or empathy for them, but we have to make it possible for them to come. And part of that's going to be even giving them scholarships, as they say, or helping them with their financial difficulties, because money's not the point to us. Dharma and teachings are, enlightenment is, and also giving them teachings once they come. Can't just say, oh, come to my retreat and we're going to ride horses and take you out in nature and everything will be fine. You go back, nothing sticks. You got just a little vacation. But if you come and you sit with a teacher who is teaching the Dharma, and those teachings are based in the tradition that's been realized by the seers and yogis and so forth, it's just a matter of time before they wake up and those signs begin to appear and these other signs begin to disappear. And pretty soon they're saying, well, I have to go to every retreat. This self-same person I was just talking about went home from the retreat a few days ago. When she got home that day, I got an email that evening. I've already purchased my airline ticket to the next retreat in Seattle. She's so sure that this is the way and this is the path that she's not going to let time pass, that Maya could rise and cause her to think otherwise inside of those next 2 months before the next retreat. She's not giving that a chance to come in. So that's doing battle, you see. So this teaching sunk in. And the courage of her convictions is there, and we'll do everything we can to keep her on the path. So the final one here, taking seriously the words of illumined beings and following them. And across the board, listening to conventional opinions only, while turning away from wise counsel. So those two opposites are signs of battle and signs of failure. Listening to the words of the holy beings is called sadhu satsanga, and that's holy company. And it's hard to find, so once you find it, then you're very fortunate. You're lucky stars, as it were. You see, good karmas. So then you have to follow through with attendance and and then take those teachings home and put them into practice. It's called sadhana. Morality isn't doing it for us. Morality, where there's morality, there's immorality. So, it's always back and forth between virtue and vice. You go, I'm a good boy today, and oh, I'm not such a good boy tomorrow, and so forth. I wasn't so good yesterday either. But when you get the teachings of the Dharma, you've entered into a whole level of difference. And sadhana is the cutting edge for that. So I used to say, last year I came here, in fact, to give teachings, and I said, well, I've looked around the various homes of where I live in Hawaii and here in Portland and San Francisco, and I've observed and I've seen the condition of families, and I see one thing missing, even in good families, that they're not doing any practice. They may be reading the Gita, maybe going to church once a week, or Bible school with their children, or whatever it is that's religious in nature. Nobody's doing any real practice. Real practice is called sadhana. And that's where you get down with yourself and you purify yourself by the self, Krishna says in the Gita. Because the pure fact is that the Guru can't purify you, and the Dharma can't purify you. The scriptures cannot purify you. You're already pure by nature. So what is in the way of me realizing this innate purity? And again, the scriptures and the gurus can only point at that. So they can't actually do the work for you. So you have to do the work. And if the world is your oyster, you're not convinced of that. You're never working on yourself. And others can't help you either. Doctors with health, lawyers with court cases, therapists with mental complexes. None of it's doing you any good, so there's no profound solution. So Ram Prasad sits down one day and he sings a song. To hope for help from friends and family, I've found, provides no solution whatsoever. Everyone's lost here. Everyone's living in pallid imitation of everyone else. So that pallid imitation is whatever its form it takes leads to battle, leads to wars, leads to disagreements, leads to competition, and all the things that are on the opposite side of the battlefield from peaceful, non-covetous, purifying the senses and mind. All the yamas and niyamas are on the other side of the battlefield. And those who are doing sadhana are wielding those as weapons, like Arjuna is going to do again here about chapter 4, chapter 5, when the light of truth comes back to him because of Krishna's teaching. He's taken holy company in the worst of situations. Hopefully you won't have to wait to the worst of situations to do that. In fact, we'd like you never to have to come close to that kind of problem. Be born in realized families. Take birth with illumined parents. Is that going to happen in America? Probably not yet. How many of us had illumined parents? Maybe some of us had moral parents if we were lucky. See, some of us maybe had parents that weren't misled by fundamentalist religion, which was fallow ground, At least you weren't starting off on the wrong footing and having to deprogram yourself from ideas like original sin and so forth, which are untenable and unacceptable to the seeker. But illumined souls, be born in India and Tibet and so forth, when you find Dalai Lama's taking his 13th or 14th birth, you find him in Tibet, and Karmapa in Tibet, and Swami Vivekananda coming out of India, and Ramana Maharshi coming out of India. So you take illumined parents. We found a really beautiful saying by Vivekananda a couple months ago, and he said, "My parents prayed for lifetimes to get me as their child." That prayer wasn't just oh God, please send me a child, now I'm waiting. See, well, God, where is it? See, I'm waiting. It's preparing yourself, purifying yourself. I looked into the Code of Manu for the first time a couple months ago, and put part of it into a New English because it's very, very hard to understand. But the Code of Manu speaks about certain practices that the wife and the husband do, first independent of each other, to purify themselves for a child, and then after they get married, what they do together to purify themselves before a child is born. So they're actually consciously trying to attract spiritual souls to them. Souls that are higher and better than them, not just by accident, you see, which can happen. Souls all of a sudden surprised. Sri Ramakrishna's father was surprised when he had a vision of Vishnu, and Vishnu said, "I'm going to be born as your child." "Oh no, please," he said, "I'm not ready for that. See, how will I take care of you? I'm a poor man," and so forth. So this kind of preparation is called sadhana, basically what I'm saying, and it's for this lifetime and the next, if you should have another. And it would have been better if you had been born into a family that taught you that, instead of just morality, or even short of that, worldly life was all you had, see, with all the signs of failure that accompany it, all the way from the cradle to the grave, as my teacher used to say. Well, that is the first showing of this chart, except at the retreat last weekend. So you've been exposed to the idea of science of battle. It really applies, put it together for these youth that are having these problems and writing me these questions and emails, but it applies to all of us who have jobs and have to live in the world and subsist somehow and keep our spiritual life living day to day, breathing. Swami Vivekananda was often saying that the Vedanta has to be brought out of temples and out of books and placed into life and live. So that's not a new idea, but it would be new to see it being done. So that's what we're given when we get a soul like Vivekananda come amongst us. We have a responsibility to start doing that to our capacity, to the best of our ability. A quick look around transmuting poison of relativity into nectar of immortality would be using Shiva, Lord Shiva, for the ultimate example. And quote there I put at the bottom, "The pure and self-sacrificing soul, devout worshipper of Mother of the universe and the Holy Trinity, while swimming blissfully in the ocean of existence under the pristine sky of awareness, willingly assumes and deftly transforms the collective karma of all living beings abiding in the three worlds, demonstrating how to transcend attachment to the objects of the senses via well-intentioned use of Shakti power in order to gain liberation from repetitious cycles of rebirth and ignorance." And Babaji wins the award for the longest sentence ever in English language. Chanting Om Kali with every breath, he then drinks the nectar from the rare fruit of her non-dual wisdom. Chanting Om Kali with every breath. That's how our founder, Lex Sixon, put it. Kali, 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 which were the last words Sri Ramakrishna spoke before he gave up his body in Mahasamadhi, or Nirvana. So that was just so long because it was explaining in a few sentences the chart itself. You see, there's the sky of awareness all around Shiva. Sun of non-dual wisdom is shining on him all the time. Yet he's manning the trident, which is the three worlds, gross, subtle, and causal. Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, if you want to say it, or the seven worlds inside of three divisions. He's master of that. That's what his trident signifies. So don't think it's something devilish or something, some trident like the devil, Christian devil. It's not. It's got three tines on it, like a fork, as it were, and he wields that and helps all beings seek freedom once they get the desire for it, and attain it too, and follow through. Om Namah Shivaya, we say. There he is. His mind is always Om Kali, Om Kali. And there you see him with the conch shell. He has just scooped up the poison from that is coming out of the ocean of nectar, because the gods and goddesses are taking Vasuki as a snake, wrapping it around Mount Mandara and churning, putting it into Ekarnava and churning it. So the Mount Mandara is the mind, and the ocean is Maya. Will give you everything you want, the seers told them, if you churn the ocean. So they invented a big churn using the longest snake in the world and the tallest mountain. They wrapped a snake around it, they began churning, and out of it came all these beautiful things, you see. And the gods and the demigods, who are always usually enemies, got together to do this. And the suras and the asuras, you see. So this is part of the process of the mind that's looking for good things, but not admitting that negativity comes all the time with positivity, that there's this opposite duality to everything, and to every act there's a downside. So the downside of this was poison started coming out. Unbeknownst to them, they were grabbing the winged horse and the cow of plenty who gave milk without having to be fed, and jewels, Lakshmi's diadem, and things were coming out of this when they churned, and they were grabbing for self, and this poison meanwhile was oozing out of Ekarnava and undermining the whole foundation of the universe, all the universes, Bur, Bhuva, and Swaha. And when they noticed it was eating through everything and eroding everything, the only thing they could think of was to call Lord Shiva. So he came, scooped it up, drank it. That was his sacrifice, his yagya. Here you can see a slight blue tinge to his throat, or darkness, because one story, there's different versions of the story. One story is that Parvati put her finger here so that the poison would stay in his throat and it wouldn't get to his stomach and destroy him. So that way he was able to maintain his form, the formed Shiva. Of course, the unformed Shiva could never be destroyed. He could remain on earth and be of help. And so that's the symbology there. So this is collective collective karma called everyone say that. It's hala hala, or that's the name. I can't find it in the Sanskrit dictionaries, but the basic gist of it is it's a kind of poison, and that the snake is spewing up. It's the sound that the snake that's wrapped around his neck, or this snake, there's pictures of this where there's a great poison coming out of Vasuki's mouth. And so he's saying, so all this poison's emitting out, you see. And that's the sound he's making when that's happening. So hala hala is, I put there in parens. And so Lord Brahma, of course, is the conch shell. He's the projector of all the worlds. Vishnu will sustain them, and then Shiva will come along and dissolve them back, and then that process will go on and on. So this is the work of the Trinity, as we always sing about that and never fail. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Deva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, the great teacher, the Guru, is Brahma, is also Vishnu, is also Shiva. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that too. The Guru is the form of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva in the body. So the Trinity is there in all its powers. And Tasmai Shri Gurave, therefore I salute that great Guru called the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Beyond Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva is the Word, and Brahman is beyond that Trinity. So God with form, and beautiful peace chant we chanted this morning actually at the altar here on this floor. We said, Sham no mitraha, Sham varunaha, Sham no bhavat varyama, Sham no indra brihaspati. Salutations to all the gods, and salutations to Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, God with form. And then salutations to the formless Brahman ends the chant. So they're saluting the gods, even the ancestors and demigods, and then they're saluting the Trinity, and then finally they're saluting the formless Brahman as the highest, best, and the most beneficial out of the ocean of consciousness, forms have come, and they dissolve back into the ocean, just like icebergs. However, some icebergs get so big that they turn to crystal under the Arctic sun, and even the sun can't melt them. That's Jesus, that's Buddha, that's Krishna, that's so forth. Muhammad, peace be upon him. So all of these great souls will live through periods of time, which is, we won't have time to get to it, but I was going to show you the concept of time in Hindu philosophy and the concept of space in Hindu philosophy, that is Vedic philosophy. But in these long cycles of time where space is playing a part, the five ethers, and then presiding over that then is the Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, who's watching that from the standpoint of God with form. And behind it is the sky of awareness and the non-dual sun of wisdom, you see. Chidakasha is behind the other five akashas, or four if you want. So this caught in the throat problem is transmutation of poison to nectar on the cosmic level, and also I would say on the collective level. But the collective level is very averse to changing. The ancestors want heaven, and they want earth. That's their desire. Patanjali calls that the desire for rebirth. And it's a great impediment to enlightenment. You'll never get enlightenment as long as you have a desire for form. You have to give it up, become Brahman, who is formless, identify with Brahman. Those who meditate upon Brahman realize Brahman, Upanishad says. And they only know the truth and peace. To them belongs peace, to none else. Kata Upanishad states over and over again in some of the slokas, the last line, to them belong peace and to none else. To them belong peace and to none else. To them belong peace and to none else. Who? Those souls who have had non-dual realization. They're unique. Pearl of great price has not only been seen, it's been possessed by them. The peace that passes all understanding is their mode of operation, if they decide to operate in form. So they have an open doorway, like Sri Ramakrishna said, running a boat race between this chakra and this chakra. My mind runs a boat race between the upper four chakras, and it never goes to the lower three. It only looks down on them and helps suffering souls who want out of them. See, that's why he is there with his trident. He's going to help you pierce through ignorance, as it were, and transcend the three worlds and get into samadhi, non-dual realization. I'm giving you a quick overview even without using my copy, but to refer to it quickly here, of course, there's Om. The word belongs to Shiva. He's doing his Tandava dance. This is his dance of the noumenon. We've seen Dance of the Phenomenon. That's Maya. But not many people have seen the Dance of the noumenon, which is Shiva's Tandava dance. I could sing the song if we had time. Beautiful song about that talks about Narada and Sharada and all the great souls that have seen Shiva dance, and they've gone into ecstasy watching it. Snakes are wriggling about his neck. His forearms are moving in the air, and his drum. He's playing his drum and so forth. His damaru, and they said this is an astounding vision that puts you in samadhi to see Shiva dance. So there's that, and moving down the chart, there's seeds of power around his massive arms of strength. You see, are these bijams. So the Rudraksha bead, it has many significances, mantra of course, but it also means the seeds that are in deep sleep. And I really wanted to get to this chart. I can show it to you, how the Vedic rishis saw you, basically. You have 3 states, 7 limbs, and 19 mouths. That is so. Basically, this is the 24 cosmic principles, and your consciousness is enjoying everything as through its 3 mouths, through its limbs, 7 limbs, and its 19 mouths. And they're talking about you in 3 states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. I didn't get a chance to show you this at the Gaudapada retreat a few months ago in Wynwood, but along the Columbia River, but I hadn't got it colorized yet. So now you see that God is enjoying everything through these tattvas. You are that, enjoying this in 3 states, like the trident, you see. And so they're looking at you as Brahman, ultimately as Brahman, and you're enjoying all the worlds, you see, through these apertures and through these limbs. So they're taking the senses and your arms and your legs and your body and your thoughts and everything and turning them divine. And both these chants really are speaking in tantric terms, but this is a Vedic chart, Vedic idea. So you see how Veda and Tantra have always had this relationship, like 2 rivers blending themselves, and it's hard to see where you can split them. She's not this beautiful Indian woman here, Shradini, is nodding her head about that, having lived in India and seeing how these darshanas all flow together, yoga, samkhya, Vedanta, Tantra, mixing their waters and into amalgams that are very, very positive and very empowering if you take them up as practices. Even if you take them up as a philosophy, they're empowering. But to take them up as practice after understanding the philosophy makes them twice as powerful. So back here, we'll probably get to this weekend after next. But if you look at this, then you're coming down to these sacred bijams. Like we chanted Om Tayu Shantihi, Antariksham Shantihi, Prathivi Shantihi, Apaho Shantihi. These are earth, fire, water, air. These are gods, but they're also elements, and they're also reserved in the mind of God. In the mind of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are all these bijams. So all they have to do is speak them and they will happen. Ask and it shall be given, knock and it shall be answered. That wasn't just a prayer to God to get fish and loaves and nets and wives and huts, you see. You have to become fishers of men. So those bijams are to be understood as coming from the Word, which is in the beginning, which was with God, which was God. You see, God's Word. So everything comes out of God's Word. That's why he has this Om sign on his hand, you see, and he goes like this: be fearless, go beyond form, is what that means, essentially. In your meditation, go beyond form. And if you die consciously, go beyond form. Try and reach the light. Don't stop short of the light. You've done that before, and you found yourself back in the womb. So, seeds of power are very important for that. The mantra can help you purify the mind that has a tendency to be reborn again. You can love the feet of the Lord so much, you see, that it becomes a refuge of peace for you. A beautiful song about that, which sometimes we sing. Oh, gee, I guess it doesn't mix. Now, if I can just remember that during workplace and just things to see. Mono chalo nija viketane. Mono chalo nija viketane. Shamshara videshe videshir veshe. Brahma keno karane. Mono chalo nija viketane. Oh mind, return to your own abode, your eternal home. You are a foreigner in this foreign land. Why do you roam about aimlessly with no real purpose? The 5 senses and the 5 elements, all these are different from you. None of them belong to you. Why have you become senseless in your attachment to others and forgotten your own true nature? Bang, 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 bang. All signs of battle like punches delivered to Maya to put it to the mat for all time. You see, and it will never get up again and rise in you. Because why? Because you are never in Maya. Maya is in you, so get rid of it, Vivekananda said. So, a beautiful song. The very first song that Naren, Swami Vivekananda, future Vivekananda, sang to Sri Ramakrishna the first time they met on earth in that incarnation. O mind, return to your own abode, your eternal home. Your eternal home is Shiva, and he's called the eternal abode. At the end of all things, he will preside, dissolving the worlds. You should make acquaintance with him. Death is nothing next to Shiva. Shiva's eternal life that happens after life and death in cycles are transcended after you get rid of your desire to be reborn again in a little tiny, puling, waste-filled flesh bag. And you get over that limitation, you see. You're rather going to think of yourself in terms of being the Lord in a human body if you come back, enjoying everything through its 3 mouths, its 7 limbs, its 3 states, its 7 limbs and its 19 mouths. And therefore, you're illumined when you're 8 years old. Who am I talking about? Shankara. Yeah. Shankara is a name for Shiva. He was a worshipper of Shiva. And he was also an Advaita Vedantist, and he also wrote songs to Divine Mother. There you have the blending of Vishnu, Shiva, and Shakti, Divine Mother, in one soul. So he wrote those beautiful songs. Namrichor Nashanka, Name Jati Beda, Pita Naiva Me Naiva, Matama Janmaha, Chidananda Rupaha, Shivoham, Shivoham. So, Namrityur, I have no death. Name Jati Beda, Jati birth, because I was never born. You don't understand. I'm not the form. I am the essence. Shivaham, Shivaham. So, to understand the soul and the body who is illumined is to understand that they were never born and they will never die. That's their mental perspective, and the mind is in control of the body, not the other way around. You don't think they're a body when they come into birth. So Shankara knew that right away, knew all the scriptures of India. That's a lot by the time he was 8. Just brought him right out of his mind. And he was teaching graybeards when he was in his teens. Who does that remind you of? You have to climb a mountain to find him. Lord Shiva. So he named himself well. You have to find Shiva, old graybeards are climbing snow-covered mountains to try and find this cave where Shiva's staying, you see. Millions of souls are trying to find places like Manidvipa and Vaikuntha, where Vishnu resides, and Shiva's abode called Kailas, Mount Kailas, which is an actual mountain, actually, in the physical world. So that's in possession of all these bijams. If you know a being like that, then birth, life, and death are nothing to you. In fact, they become a part of the phenomena that the mind is capable of. And then one can withdraw from them. Just say, like Swami Vivekananda, what was his mantra when he encountered problems in England and America? Shiva, Shiva. So you'd always hear him say that. Sister Nivedita said he would be meditating, he'd encounter some problem, he'd think about it, he'd go, Shiva, Shiva. Everything can become overcome. And he used to look at you and say, have you done your Shiva Puja today? To the householders, have you done your Shiva Puja today? You need to keep that up. And this great power of Lord Shiva, the power of dissolution, is so effective against problems. So you go to Shiva for dissolution. not only dissolution of problems, but dissolution of your form when you're done with it. And dissolution of the desire to take another is also Shiva's business. You go to Lord Brahma, oh, go ahead, take another form. Enjoy my creation, you see. Oh, I'm the conch, you see. Let me blow you. You're the sound. You come out, you see. So it's a vibration that he's in charge of. Sound, Shabda Brahman. But Shiva, very specific in that way. For those who want to, those who have gained dissatisfaction with the world, which we thought maybe was a problem, but we actually see it as a sign of success. They see it as a sign of success in us. When you come to them and say, well, the world's not satisfying me. Ah, here we go. See. First they want to see if that's really a sincere desire. If you just, lose your spouse and 6 months later you're remarried, that wasn't really, you weren't done with it, you see. You still wanted more. So they'll test you, and then if it's really sincere, then say, okay, come and we'll enter into this spiritual path together. We'll get you free of your desires, all of them. What's the one thing to pray for? Holy Mother said. You're already liberated. What's the one thing to pray for? I'll give you a hint. It's Sanskrit. Nirvasana. Vasana is desire. Nir is elimination or extinction of. So if you're going to pray to anything to the Lord, say, please, satisfy, fulfill, or destroy all my desires. Because then she followed that teaching up by saying, it's the last lifetime for you when you have satisfied all your desires. That's your last lifetime. So it starts out with a kind of dissatisfaction with things unreal, and then proceeds on to a sadhana that you practice, and then graduates into a feeling of contentment, peace, knowledge, truth, and the bliss that follows both. So what are you going to sing? High. That note. How high? Very high. The time remaining, 15 minutes. Let's wrap up this chart. Well, we've already kind of said that the mind and its desires, which is a good segue right here, is Mount Mandara, the mind. The powers have gotten a hold of the mind, you might say, if you take it out of the anthropomorphical context, you see. The powers, gods and goddesses, demigods, asuras, negative beings, have all gotten a hold of the mind, and they're churning it constantly. And the pure and free mind is a far cry from that yet, you see. But you're using your powers. We had that at the retreat last weekend, you see. We showed the chart of rain cloud of virtues next to the 8 occult powers. And in fact, the weekend after next I'll show another version of that. Show you these occult powers are still on the wax in you, you see. Then you've got this problem of positive and negative, good and bad, pleasure and pain, life and death, loss and gain, profit and loss, and so forth. But as soon as you free the mind of that, then you're back to your original state again, original mind, Om. But the snake here is a residue, you see. So he's what's left over after everything else has been made extinct by Shiva. There's this shesha, it's called. It's a residue, cosmic residue that's still there, that's going to bring cycles of time and space dancing back, sometimes in terms of 4,320,000,000 year cycles, you see, which is one day of Lord Brahma's life. It's a long day. It's a long, full day, I can tell you. And one night of Lord Brahma's night is another 4,320,000,000 years, of which Shiva is beginning to come on the rise. So these great cosmic powers, time is nothing. Holy Mother, Sri Ramakrishna both used to talk about that. The 4 billion years is a blink of an eye, like in deep sleep, or in Rip Van Winkle Loka. It's a blink of an eye, you see. You didn't know what went past, and it was a long time, like in a coma, you see. What year is it? Yeah, I wake up, what day is it? 17th. What month is it? February. Oh, I've been asleep for several weeks. What year is it? 2017. Oh, I went into a coma when it's 2010. 7 years went by just like that, and you didn't know a thing. So time is nothing, really. In deep sleep, it's nothing. At death, it's nothing. In samadhi, it's nothing. So you don't get too wowed by this teachings of time and cycles. The point is not the length. You see, the point is, number one, how all time is stacked on top of each other into one moment. And the other point is that it's illusory. It comes from the mind, like everything else. It's your mind it came from. So he's called what? Tree, Kala, Darshi. Darshi, seer. Trikala, 3 phases of time. 3 worlds, 3 phases of time. 3 matras of Om, waking, dreaming, deep sleep, AUM. He's a master of all these triputis. See? That's why then you would go to him. If you were to go and take refuge in Vishnu, how much different is it? You see, you would be singing something, instead of Namrityur Nashanka, you might be singing something like Om Ajnanatimirandasya. Sorry. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnana Jana Salokaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamala Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha. Verses on end after that. Praises, Lord, eternal praises, never-ending praises be unto thee, O adorable one, who takest the devotees from earth to the highest realm of existence. You have opened my eyes, given me insight, and cleared my perception of doubts and imperfections. Therefore, to thee, O beloved, I offer all that I am. So, put more from the bhakti perspective, you see, in Vishnu's case. Not that Vishnu is at all less in wealth and knowledge. You just read the Gita and you'll find Krishna's talking most of the time about knowledge, a little bit about meditation, and some bhakti thrown in. The 3 sixes they call, you see, which is a positive connotation in our tradition. 6 chapters on work and 6 chapters on knowledge and 6 chapters on devotion. And then at the end, the 4 yogas. You see, it's a very beautiful layout, the Gita, with the idea of the battlefield. So you'd be singing songs in either tradition that have basically the same message to the highest level of existence, but along pathways that may be more or less attended by these 4 yogas. Each one emphasized a little more in one case and underemphasized in another. Until you get Avatara Varishtaya Ashtate Namaha, you get this age with Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, and Swami Vivekananda, who are proposing all 4 yogas be equally realized in you. Master of wisdom, in love with Brahman and God with form, and in possession of the attainment of non-dual meditation, and in service of all living beings. All 4 of those temperaments. He said, cooked in the kitchen of yoga, he says. Practice all 4 of these. That's the highest path, the religion of this age. Well, back to the Sukhi and the residue, he's got his coils there, which are desire and attachment. you see, are all taking place. And there's a possibility that will come back if you get caught in those coils. So it's also very possible that you'll join the ancestors in their cycles. It's also possible that you could even become a god or a demigod. You see beings like that on Earth. Like you see great explorers, great conquerors, great world dominators were asuras in their past lifetime. They had a power to rule over others. Now the difference between those and, say, a Mahatma Gandhi or something, you see, who is also involved in the world, or a Dalai Lama who also puts together the beauty of both the world and spiritual life, is that they have a benign desire to guide the people, lokasangraha, whereas these dominators, they want to have power over all worlds, you see, and they want to have power over all countries in this case. So the countries are different worlds to them. They'll conquer, try and bring them together under one rule. That's an asura. It's got a desire, strong desire to rule. So that's not benign lordship you're talking about, although there's an admixture of good in them. You look at some of these great conquerors, Alexander the Great and so forth, they have these, historically they did good things too. But they have this strong power to rule over others. That's an occult power. The gods are beginning to lose that. They still have a tinge of that left in them, but it's more for benign purposes. So to explain that in the terms of rebirth, is these different worlds, 3 worlds, 7 worlds, lokas, akashas, whatever they're called, are peopled by subtle beings. That's where you'll find the kingdoms of heaven within. Where else would they be? Certainly not up there. So if you move in, you'll find many worlds, and there'll be people, beings, souls there, occupying those worlds. They don't take up space, dimension, height, width, breadth, depth, like this world. Or solidity is not there, liquidity is not there. That's where the bijams come in. Those are all ideas. And those ideas give rise to subtle worlds, and the subtle worlds give rise to gross worlds. That's called evolution. But any good evolution in India has to be accompanied by an involution. You do that involution at dream tonight, when you visit your ancestors, or you see a vision of a sage or a god or something. Then you go into deep sleep and you dissolve it all. Shiva is there with you, you see. Shiva is a power in you. The power of projection, sustenance, and withdrawal is all within you. The great soul, you, the Paramatman. We'll have a teaching on that weekend after next. So this is how worlds get projected, sustained, and withdrawn, either over 4,320,000,000 year cycles or in 24 hours. That's how flexible time is, how malleable it is, and how lightning swift the mind is. Nothing moves faster than the mind except her, Shakti. She moves fastest of all. Even the Upanishads and the seers say, Mother is higher than the highest, lower than the lowest, faster than the fastest, and slower than the slowest. She outstrips all that run, all that runs. But next to her, the mind is next swiftest. And so we don't see what we're doing when we project. We don't see when we dissolve it. Everything goes by too quick, like fast forward a movie. If you meditate, you slow down the vibrations of the mind to see what you're doing. When you see, you're called a seer. When you have that vision as a seer, that's when you say, I think I'll quit this. It really doesn't have any purpose. In fact, beings are getting caught under my control, and I don't really want that. I want them to be free. Vivekananda said, I want all beings to be free as the air they breathe. And he also said, hands off. The teacher spoils everything by thinking that he's teaching. He must only remove obstacles from the path, but let the devotee walk the path. However, how can the devotee walk the path if you don't give them methods, see, and encourage them into sadhana? And so, Sri Ramakrishna said, superior doctor, shove the medicine down your throat. Mediocre doctor, call you. Did you take it? Okay, take it. Play. inferior doctor, prescribe, go away, I don't want to see you again. Pay me my fee, and go away. So all of these things put into perspective, especially under a great being like Swami Vivekananda, who's also called an incarnation of Lord Shiva. Jai Vireshvara, Jai Tripurari, Gaye Hamu Sab Mahima Teri. Jai Vireshvara, Jai Tripurari, Gaye Hamu Sab Mahima Teri. Jai Ho, Vivekananda, Mujadaru, Mahimati Hari. Jai Ho, Vivekananda, Mujadaru, Mahimati Hari. Jai Vireshvara, Jai Tripurari, Gaye Hamu Sab Mahimati. So who is Tripurari? He wields the trident. Shiva Tripurari. Vireshvara, the Lord of the worlds. Who is that? So they're singing about Vivekananda and equating him to Lord Shiva. He's here to destroy all your problems, all your barriers, all your impediments, and put you into a state of samadhi that he saw his master in. And when he followed his master, he too got into nirvikalpa samadhi. So you have all the 16 apostles of Sri Ramakrishna. They all had spiritual visions, they all had depth, they all had lower samadhis. Only a few of them attained nirvikalpa. That's how rare it is. And these souls were no slouches. They were the cream of the crop of humanity in this day and age. Couldn't find their like anywhere. When I study them, they're all windows into Sri Ramakrishna, and they're all realized in their own right. So this is what has come upon us, see, in this day and age, that we've been given these 16 great apostles or disciples, direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and looking into them and what they learned and what they experienced will lead the soul. Some of us here now may have been disciples of those direct disciples in the time that they were living their last lifetime. You think it's strange? Sri Ramakrishna saw people dancing when his disciples dancing. He said, I saw that 3 of my disciples were actually apostles of Chaitanya in his dancing kirtan. I saw that 2 others were Christ's apostles. So these souls are coming back. It doesn't matter what the religion, what the time, and so forth. It just matters that they're attached to the avatar. They're following the avatar Vada. And whenever the avatar gets born on earth, you want to be there. That's your path, Avatara Vada. You follow no matter what happens. And that's what you're in the watch for inside. You're watching the Lord. The Lord is going to make a move. I want to be there, see. Because if I'm there, I'll get Samipya, Sayujya, Salokya, and Sarupya. Sarupya means I'll get the same form as God. I'll look like God, I'll act like God. I'll get a form in the same time, a body in the same country. Sarupya, Salokya means I'll be born in the same world at the same time the Lord comes into a body. Samipya means I'll be dear to the Lord. Father, the son of a king, never wants for anything, so I'll be like the son of a king. I'll be dear to the Lord. I'll be taken care of. And Sayujya means I'll get the non-dual experience by being near him, which is so rare to have. This nirvana called Buddha, Sampragata by the father of yoga, and Nirvikalpa by Lord Vedavyasa, and Busho, if you wish. See, this highest experience of formless awareness that is full of nothing but peace, bliss, wisdom, consciousness, and empty of all things that there are obstacles to that. So I think we're running out of time here, but we did finish this chart. The only things to say here is the waters of existence there are being churned, the misuse of Shakti power by the Asuras, the proper use of it by the Suras. And therefore one is following a trajectory that's inward and always checked by cosmology, by philosophy, and also attaining that highest spirituality, which is the boon and the meed of all illumined souls. So here, let's end with a chant. Om Sato, Om Sato Ma Satgamoya, Tamaso Ma Joitir Gamoya, Mritshor Ma Amritam Gamoya, Abira Bira Mayeti, Rudrayate Dakshinamukam, Tenabam Pahinicham, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from lower truth to higher truth. Lead us from the unreal to the real. And lead us from the illusion of death to eternal life. Reach us through and through, O Lord and Mother of the universe, with thy sweet and benign presence. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om